Coffee, more than just a breakfast beverage. To drink or not to drink? That is the question. For a long time, coffee was treated as a villain. For example, parents wouldn't let their children drink it for fear that it would stunt their growth. Others thought that the bitter drink would lead to heart disease and other health issues. But research from the last decade or so has shown quite the opposite. Coffee may actually have quite a few health benefits. The reason behind the reversal and how we think about coffee is very interesting. And it's because earlier studies didn't always take into account that known high-risk behaviors, for example, smoking or a lack of physical activity, tended to be more common among heavy coffee drinkers. So if you drank coffee, you were more likely to smoke, and obviously if you smoke, you're more likely to get certain types of cancer. And so they falsely or erroneously found a link between coffee drinking and cancer. But now, research has separated those at-risk behaviors from drinking coffee. And it looks like those of us who do start our morning with a hot cup of coffee seem to have a lot to celebrate. What are the benefits? First, coffee seems to improve heart health. Scientists combined data from 36 different studies, and the results? People who drink 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day are at the lowest risk for cardiovascular disease. Surprisingly, people had to drink about 10 cups of coffee a day before any bad associations were observed. That's a lot of coffee. Coffee may also reduce the risk of different types of cancer. In one study, for example, increasing coffee consumption by 2 cups a day was associated with a 40% lower risk of liver cancer, and that's just one type of cancer. In addition, it's possible that coffee might protect against neurological disorders. We've seen studies where coffee is associated with lower risks for Parkinson's disease, improved cognitive function, and it's possible that it even protects us against Alzheimer's. If that weren't enough, coffee seems to reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. Regular coffee consumption has been shown to significantly reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes, particularly for those people who drink 6 to 7 cups a day. Again, we're talking about a lot of coffee. And interestingly, the more coffee you drank in these studies, the less likely you were to have diabetes. It's worth noting here that these studies focused on the benefits of black coffee, not mocha, caramel, frappuccinos that are loaded with whipped cream and sugar. No. Still not convinced that drinking coffee is a good idea? Well, what if I told you that in 2011, there was a study that showed that women who regularly drink coffee, the fully caffeinated kind, have a 20% lower risk of depression than non-drinkers. Scientists followed 51,000 women for a decade in the study. And every 2 years, the women who participated in the study provided detailed information about several different factors, such as their caffeine intake, their depression risk factors, their weight, and their levels of exercise and smoking. Women who reported a diagnosis of depression or showed signs of depression at the start of the study were excluded from the analysis. During the decade that women were followed, 2,607 cases of clinical depression were diagnosed. Overall, women who regularly drank coffee had a lower risk of depression by about 20%, and that's compared to the women who did not drink coffee. Even more interesting was the fact that the risk of depression fell further with each additional cup of coffee. In other words, just like I mentioned with type 2 diabetes, the more coffee these women drank, the lower their risk of depression. It is worth mentioning here that decaf coffee, soft drinks, chocolate, tea, and other sources of caffeine unfortunately do not offer the same protection against depression according to the study. And that's probably due to the fact that those drinks have lower levels of caffeine. So to recap, coffee is good for your heart, it's good for your brain, and it can help prevent cancer and depression. That's great, right? But then, with all of these health benefits in mind, why aren't doctors recommending that we all start our day off with a cup of coffee? Well, it's one thing to say that coffee is safe and might have some health benefits. It's quite another thing to recommend coffee as a medical choice, especially for people who don't like it and who would have to make an effort to adopt it as a daily habit. In order for doctors to recommend coffee to people, they would need much stronger evidence, like the evidence that not exercising is bad for you. So not drinking coffee would have to probably be proven to be bad for you in some way. So even though coffee is no longer the bad guy that it once was, it looks like the main reason people drink and have always drunk coffee hasn't changed, nor is it likely to in the future. And what's the number one reason? Taste. Those who don't like coffee won't drink it, and those who do will. Thank you.